Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is I, your host, McLateral, aka McLateral FF on the Twitter. It is week 8, y'all. We have made it just about halfway through the season. And despite all that, you still occasionally deal with technical difficulties. Had a little issue with my Razer products. It seems like I might still be getting a little lag here. But hopefully getting that resolved. At any rate, though, you don't care about my AV issues. What you care about is the football. And so luckily, I've done some prep work. I've got you covered. And so we can go straight in to some player updates. I'm going to, real quick, very unprofessionally, double check my phone and make sure that nothing new has come through since I wrote the show sheet. And speak of the devil, here is an alert. Okay, Kyler Murray sprained his ankle. Not going to affect you a ton this week, but may affect you going down the road. But that seems to be the only one. So I'm going to wait for that to load just to get some confirmation. But in the meantime, let's go through some stuff we already know for sure. Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr. both active for the Cleveland Browns, along with quarterback Baker Mayfield. It's not a great situation. You probably don't want to have to play anyone that I just mentioned, but you can if you need to. I'd maybe lean Jarvis Landry of the three if you had to play one of them. Okay, let's see. This finally loaded up. Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray sprained his ankle on the final drive. It's a 1 to 2 week injury, so you may be without Kyler for a little bit. So just keep that in mind. Moving on, though, more wide receiver news. Devontae Parker active, Corey Davis inactive, and Calvin Ridley surprisingly out. Seems like it's a personal issue, possibly the same one that affected him earlier in the season. So something that both keep an eye on long term, but definitely make sure he's not in your lineups this week. Jamal Williams, moving on to the running backs. He's really the biggest news, but we got a couple others. So Jamal Williams out. Which mostly just means that it's DeAndre Swift season. He should have a pretty good game, being the only real option out of the backfield. But Austin Eckler is trending up, so most likely you will get to play him this week. Same with Alex Collins for the Seattle Seahawks, who I believe will maintain his lead back role as long as Chris Carson is out. Another little bit of wide receiver news. T.Y. Hilton is active against the Tennessee Titans. We'll touch on that a little more later. And then Dak Prescott is a game time decision. Monitor that closely. If for some reason he's out, don't play Cooper Rush unless you absolutely have to. You might not have another choice, to be fair, but man, it's something you want to try and avoid, especially because, like, forget if Cooper Rush was any good or not. Like, he's really just not going to be ready for this. And then Gronk seems to now be trending towards a game time decision, which I think is actually a slight downward trend. So I would really be monitoring that closely. Maybe don't expect to rely on Robert Gronkowski this week. That covers all the player updates. So on to some ad drop recommendations. So the first one, already talked a bit about this matchup in the player updates, but the matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans should be pretty sweet for fantasy purposes. So Carson Wentz, still widely available. I definitely recommend picking him up. Over the past 3 weeks, he's been, I believe, QB9. His passing has been really solid lately. He's done a good job. And on top of that, the rushing may be back. So since spraining both his ankles in week 2, he had basically been a non-existent rusher. But last week, he got, I believe, over 20 yards, had multiple attempts. It was finally looking like the old Carson Wentz in terms of the rushing upside, which, is not nothing for him. So I would definitely go pick him up. I think he'll be a good play this week. And he's got some good matchups coming up as well, if I recall correctly. So definitely someone I would recommend targeting on waivers if he is still available. And he is still available, I think, just over 50% of leagues. So is Alex Collins. So if you need a running back, Alex Collins against the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's borderline a bell cow. Like, yes, they used multiple running backs in their last game, but Alex Collins was the only one who didn't have one rushing attempt. He had 16. Was it inefficient? Yes. Is he dealing with some injuries? Yes. On the other hand, are you going to get volume like that from anyone else on the waiver wire? Pretty much no. So I definitely recommend going and picking up Alex Collins. I also recommend picking up Samaje Perine if you are really desperate. He will not be the lead back, but he has a couple things going for him. One, over the past 2 games he's played, he's had 11 rushing attempts. He's also seen targets. He could be valuable in this offense if that is really how they're going to use him. If he is going to be part of more of a committee with Joe Mixon rather than just the backup, that will be really valuable as long as this offense is playing as well as it is. And he's a pretty valuable backup because he will definitely take over in the case that Joe Mixon is injured. And then finally, he gets the New York Jets this week. So let's say the Bengals just crush them. Maybe they rest Mixon. Maybe they throw Perine in. Maybe they use Perine and Mixon again in more of a committee, and it's a great matchup. So Perine just does well. He is a surprisingly good play this week. So definitely recommend him. And then if you are truly desperate, if there are not a ton of good options, you could pick a Houston running back if you're feeling lucky. With Mark Ingram out, in theory, there's a lead role up for grabs. Could be Phillip Lindsay, could be David Johnson. It could be Scotty Phillips. That's who it was. Yeah. So the case for each of them is Phillip Lindsay's probably the best runner of the 3 at this point. So if they really want the running back to just run the ball, he makes sense. David Johnson's probably the best all-around back. He's particularly better at pass catching than the 3. So if they just want someone that they can throw in play after play, he may be the move. Plus, he's the veteran presence technically. And then Scotty Phillips, if they want to just go full rebuild and they're trading off assets and they're like, this isn't working, we're going to fully rebuild, they may just want to see the rest of the season what they have from this kid. And so Scotty Phillips may be the answer. So it's definitely, if you're feeling lucky, it's pick your poison. I would go for Alex Collins or Samaje Perine over any of them without question. All right, moving on to wide receivers. Said we'd talk about this, and we're going to talk about it. T.Y. Hilton is active against the Titans. The Titans are an incredible matchup for wide receivers. Carson Wentz should be able to air it out plenty, and he can air it out to T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman. And the one game we saw T.Y. Hilton healthy, he actually led the Colts in targets. He was, I think, tied for the lead technically, but they threw him right out there and let him be a lead guy. I think Michael Pittman Jr., his role in this offense is not going away, but I think T.Y. Hilton is going to be that second wide receiver of any value. So if you need a wide receiver to play, because again, Antonio Brown out, Calvin Ridley now suddenly out, Corey Davis inactive, like there are holes in your roster possibly. So I would recommend T.Y. Hilton first, and then Marquez Callaway for the New Orleans Saints up against the Bucks. It's a really good matchup. I don't know how Jameis is going to handle this game. That's kind of the big concern. And we've seen Callaway struggle at times when he's really been relied on to be that top option. So I would take Hilton over Callaway personally, but if Hilton's not available, Marquez Callaway would be my second recommendation at wide receiver. For tight end, you got 2 options here. CJ Uzomah has been great as a boom bust option. It's been surprising to say the least. But he has been good. So Jets are a really good matchup. You could go ride that wave, see if the Bengals continue to use him in that space, in that inside the 20, inside the 10, looking at touchdowns. But the target share just isn't quite going to be there. So that's really the one thing you have to be concerned about with Uzomah. A guy you might not have to be concerned with target share about is Pittsburgh Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth, who would be my top recommendation. There's a couple reasons why. One, high draft capital. He was second-round draft pick, so this team is going to want to use him. 2, he's already kind of got a connection with Ben Roethlisberger. Things have gone decently well in terms of Roethlisberger's ability to trust Freiermuth with the ball. 3, Eric Ebron out. Juju Smith-Schuster out for the season. So they're running out of other options. So Pat Freiermuth could be the third or fourth receiving option, probably fourth because Najee and then the two wide receivers. Najee, sorry, I'm going to get that first name pronunciation right at some point. But yeah, so Pat Freiermuth, he's going to be the number 4 target in this offense. They will want to utilize him. They drafted him because they will want to utilize him. And he's seeing decent targets. So again, I would pick him up, especially because he is now through his bye week. So if you hit on him this week, and it seems like they're going to trust him going forward, you can now have a tight end for the rest of the season, which is not nothing. Like, that's a significant plus to your roster. DST is a little rough, so there are some options out there. Cowboys don't have a particularly great matchup, but Kirk Cousins has been known to throw the odd interception or two, and their defense is certainly creating some turnovers on that front. They have been a top 5 fantasy football defensive special teams unit. So if you want to pick them up just because of the elite production lately, I get it. I would certainly consider it. I have them currently, though, on my benches where I have them if I can, because it's just not that great of a matchup. The Bears are an option if you think that Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to play well, which, of course, hurts my heart. But he hasn't really played well, especially since picking up the injury. First, 2 weeks of the season were pretty good. But since then, it's been rough. He might not have confidence in his leg, which is an issue we have seen when he's had lower body injuries before. So if you trust the Bears, you could, go that route. But the Bears haven't been particularly amazing against the pass. They tend to be better against the run. So that is definitely more of a boom bust option. The Vikings are an option if Cooper Rush starts over Dak, but you would have to play that super fast and loose. The only thing I would say is if you do play fast and loose with that and are just like, I'm going to wait, I'm going to see if the Vikings get the inexperienced quarterback, you will have probably either the Chiefs defense or the New York Giants defense to choose from if all of a sudden you're left holding the bag with the Vikings going up against Dak Prescott. So you won't be totally SOL, but it won't be great. I probably lean the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff can definitely turn the ball over. They're going to be reliant on one running back for most of this game, so maybe that'll lead to more opportunities to force a fumble for the Eagles defense. The Eagles defensive unit's been solid too. It hasn't been amazing. It hasn't been great, but it's been solid. And there's definitely talent, especially in that defensive line. So something to consider. If you're really in a bind, I would get them, but the Cowboys could be worth it just to stash them and then have them going forward the rest of the season. And then for kicker, there's one recommendation only. Go get Randy Bullock, play him against Indy. Should be both a great matchup, and he's been playing really well. They definitely trust him. And with Julio Jones now out, maybe they'll fall a little short on offense, and Randy Bullock will get more field goal attempts. So definitely looking that way if I need a kicker, and pretty much nowhere else. He's pretty widely available, so I don't think that you will have any issues picking him up. Okay, finally, on to Ask McLateral Anything. If anyone's out there, they want to ask a question, now's the opportunity to do so. I did get one question in my DMs. Dearness Johnson versus Darius Slayton, flex PPR. That one's actually pretty tough because I just can't trust Slayton at all. On the other hand, to play Dearness Johnson with Nick Chubb active when they essentially fill the same role in that offense, like if Dearness Johnson was filling the Kareem Hunt role in the offense, I'd be much more inclined to go to the Dearness Johnson route because they will use both running backs a ton. I'm going to go with Dearness Johnson. I think there's a chance that Kadarius Toney's going to play or that Sterling Shepard's going to play. I just don't trust Darius Slayton. Dearness Johnson, he showed up. He proved what he could do last week. So perhaps they will give him a chance again. So despite the PPR format not really playing to Dearness Johnson's strengths, I'm going to go with Dearness Johnson just because the other player is Darius Slayton. That looks like the only question that we have available here. So I am going to sign off. I'm going to go take my dog back out for a walk because, frankly, I didn't give him a long enough walk right before the show started. So I'm going to be here on Sundays going forward, doing the Sunday preview here. So just keep that in mind. If you want to ask any start-sit questions last minute, I'll be happy to answer them. That's it. That's the show. See ya. Have a fun Sunday. Enjoy your Halloween.